In this episode, we talk about a possible solution to farm fires. We also talk about the state of tuberculosis in India. But first, we talk about the case against TMC MP Mahua Moitra. Hi, I am Utsa Sarmin and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Last week, the Lok Sabha Ethics Committee recommended the expulsion of Trinamool Congress MP Mahua Moitra. Now, this comes weeks after BJP MP Nishikant Dubey claimed that the TMC MP took bribes from businessman Darshan Hiranandani in exchange of giving him access to our parliament login and password. When we spoke to the Indian Express's Vikas Pathak, he said that the relationship between Moitra and Dubey was always tense.
Of course, their relations have not been good, and even on Twitter or X these days, for the last 15 days, there has been lots of acrimony back and forth. But I remember the beginning was maybe 1 year back or a bit more than that, when Nishikant accused Mahua of calling her Bihari Gunda.
देखिए, उन्होंने बिहारी गुंडा कहा। आपको पता है सबों को कि मैं तीसरी बार सांसद जो है झारखंड से हूँ। ये दिखाता है कि जितने भी हिंदी भाषा भाषी लोग हैं, चाहे उत्तर प्रदेश के हैं, चाहे बिहार के हैं, चाहे झारखंड के हैं, चाहे मध्य प्रदेश के हैं, चाहे राजस्थान के हैं, चाहे दिल्ली के हैं, उन सबों से तृणमूल कांग्रेस को एलर्जी है, इसीलिए उन्होंने बिहारी गुंडा कहा। बिहारी गुंडा नहीं है।
That was a major issue that happened, and that became headlines, and she denied it. She said that no, nothing like this happened. But ever since then, their relation has been very turbulent.
And Vikas says the latest row between Moitra and Dubey started when a lawyer, Jai Anand Dehadrai, wrote to the BJP MP.
They apparently, the lawyer Dehadrai and Mahua had a turbulent relationship and they broke off. So that is a different matter. But the thing is that the lawyer wrote to Nishikant Dubey saying that he has evidence that Mahua Moitra was asking questions on Gautam Adani at the behest of businessman Darshan Hiranandani, and that she had also compromised her login ID of Parliament and her password with him. So Nishikant forwarded this complaint to the Speaker, and Speaker Om Birla sent it to the Ethics Committee. So that is the background of this. And in between, of course, Darshan Hiranandani also wrote a letter to the chairman of the Ethics Committee, Vinod Solkar, which kind of, accepted the charges. And he also kind of accused Mahua of being overbearing, but conceded that he played along for a while. And he conceded that, there are businessmen who are jealous of Adani, and therefore he became a sort of an approver in the case.
To know more about the case and the possible repercussions of the Ethics Committee's decision, we speak to Vikas in this segment. So Vikas, can you first tell us if allegations like these have been raised against an MP before? How serious are these accusations?
In 2005, there was a cash for query scam in which 11 members of parliament, 10 from the Lok Sabha, 1 from the Rajya Sabha, were expelled. That was a case of a sting operation where the MPs, and many of them belonged to the BJP, by the way. There were BJP MPs by and large. Then there was one Congress MP, one BSP MP who were caught on tape accepting money for asking questions in parliament. So far as the allegations are concerned, if you ask me, they are serious. Because of course, as Mahua Moitra says, cash has not been proved till now, which is true. And the ethics committee has said that it does not have the technical wherewithal to be able to say whether cash was taken. So that would be determined by a court of law once the CBI files the charge sheet, because the Lokpal of India has forwarded the complaint to the CBI. But certainly there is evidence, claims the ethics committee, of 47 logins from Dubai when Mahua Moitra was in India or elsewhere, but not in Dubai. And the first login is from July 2019. So please remember, July 2019 was her first monsoon session in Parliament as Member of Parliament, which basically means that she had compromised her NIC login credentials right after becoming an MP. And questions were kind of, there were logins to post questions on her behalf from the company of Darshan Hiranandani from Dubai as early as her first monsoon session. So in that case, I think it is a serious lapse.
And could you tell us how did Moitra respond to these allegations?
Well, Mahua in that sense has said that she did not receive any cash, but she has conceded to receiving some gifts, which she says are minor gifts, maybe a bag or something like that, right? And when she was summoned by the committee, she actually came with those gifts, which she says were the gifts that she received. She also says that there was some booking of a cab or travel thing that happened, but she denies cash. She says that she has shared her login credentials, but she says this is common practice. Yeah, and she of course says that she has been attacking Gautam Adani as a parliamentarian, so the government is trying to target her.
And Vikas, is this actually a common practice to share one's parliament login and password?
Well, it is true that there might be a secretary to the government who has authorized staff to access his email. The PA or the PS, right? They are authorized staff. Even a college principal can have a PA who accesses his or her official email ID and password, right? But those people are being paid for it. But can you compromise your password to a corporate house, that too based abroad? Because when they log in, are you sure that they are only posting a question on your behalf? They might access committee reports. You might be a member of a committee. There might be classified documents which are not yet in the public domain that they can copy and paste. That apart, they can even hack the system if they want to. It is NIC, National Informatics Center. So I would not buy the argument which many people are saying that this is common practice to pretend that parliament is so small and light a place that you can spread the password around so that anyone can log in. I don't think that works.
Right, and after these allegations came to light, she then appeared before the ethics committee. And we understand that there were some issues with how the ethics committee looked into the matter. Could you tell us about that?
Okay, so the ethics committee has recommended that she be expelled. In the ethics committee, it was a 6-4 situation where 4 MPs from the opposition kind of submitted dissent notes. The dissent notes said that procedurally it was not fine the way things were done. They said that one, Nishikant and Dehat Rai were called first and not Mahua. In that, of course, experts say that that is not an issue. The complainant can be called first and then the accused. But another point was raised that if Darshan Hiranandani had sent a letter, he should also have been called and cross-examined. And Mahua should have been allowed to cross-examine him. So, well, that might be one issue which is credible, that if Darshan Hiranandani has written something and kind of conceded that he did give gifts to Mahua in return for asking questions against Adani, then Darshan should also have been called to India to appear before the ethics committee. That, I think, is a credible point.
Right, and because do we know what happens next after the ethics committee recommends suspension of an MP?
Well, as per the rules that govern the ethics committee, the report of the ethics committee has been sent to the speaker. Now, once parliament meets on December 4th, that is when the winter session begins. Then, as per the rules, the chairman of the committee or any other member of the committee or any other member of the Lok Sabha may actually say that the report of the ethics committee be placed on the table of the house, and the speaker may permit that, and I think the speaker will permit that. Once the report is tabled, then a motion can be moved by the chairman of the ethics committee, who's a Lok Sabha MP, or any other member of the ethics committee, or any member of parliament, that the recommendations of the ethics committee be considered and adopted. Right. Before that, there can be a half an hour discussion that is permitted on this issue. But do remember that once the motion is moved, that the recommendations of the ethics committee be considered and adopted, it is a simple majority that is required. So if the Lok Sabha adopts the recommendation, and the recommendation might be expel Mahua Moitra as a member. The moment the Lok Sabha with a majority accepts that recommendation of the committee, Mahua Moitra stands expelled as a Lok Sabha MP. And let's not forget, there is now a CBI inquiry in place. In case a conviction happens at any point of time, as per Indian law, if you are convicted of an offence where the punishment is like 2 years in jail or more, you cannot contest as MP, or if you are sitting MP, you have to quit your seat. So now I think her parliamentary career might be in jeopardy.
Right, and this comes at a time when state assembly elections are ongoing and also the Lok Sabha elections are coming up. So do we know if this issue might affect the opposition alliance?
I would not say so, because the point is, in this case, it is not as if the Trinamool Congress is defending her from rooftops and others are silent. Rather, I would say opposition MPs like Danish Ali have been much more forthcoming in defending Mahua than her own party. So in this case, what seems to be the case is that even the Trinamool does not want to be seen as defending Mahua Moitra. So in this case, it is Mahua versus the BJP. Very frankly speaking, because 4 MPs who signed dissent notes in favor of her, that is just a gesture. Unless your party supports you, there's no issue. So far as the India bloc is concerned, I don't think this will affect anything.
And next we talk about a possible solution for farm fires. As most of our listeners may already know, every year in October and November, farmers in Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh burn the stubble of their crops, causing a significant rise in pollution in the national capital region. Now last week, the Supreme Court in one of its hearings mentioned that a specific type of crop is predominantly responsible for this stubble burning.
The Supreme Court didn't specifically mention the name of the variety, but the obvious allusion was to a variety called Pusa 44, which is grown by farmers of Punjab. This is a variety which was bred long time back, I think maybe about 3 decades back by the Indian Agricultural Research Institute, better called as Pusa Institute.
That's the Indian Express's Rural Affairs and Agriculture editor Harish Damodaran. And according to him, Punjab farmers favor Pusa 44 over other varieties because it's a lot more high yielding. But recently, the Indian Agricultural Research Institute has come up with a new variant, an improved version of Pusa 44 that could potentially help in reducing stubble burning. To know more about this, we speak to Harish in this segment. So Harish, can you first tell us what is the problem with Pusa 44? Why did the Supreme Court allude to this variant while talking about stubble burning?
Well, the problem with this variety is it is high yielding, but it's also a long duration paddy. So basically it takes about something like 155 to 160 days, right from the time of nursery sowing to the harvesting. So what happens is, so suppose I take the nurseries, I sow the nursery say in mid-May to late May. So then I transplant the seedlings of this variety around say June 15th to June 30th. Now this is ready for harvesting only towards October end. And I have to sow wheat before November 15th, because November 15th is the ideal time to sow wheat. So farmers, they are in a hurry to sow wheat before November 15th. And at the same time, they love growing this variety, which is ready for harvesting only towards October end. And it leaves very little time, between harvesting of the paddy and sowing of wheat. So therefore, once I've harvested my paddy crop using combines, you have those stubbles left behind. So therefore, there is no choice for me but to just simply burn the stubble, So whatever which you are seeing right now, all the farm fires which you are seeing right now, it is mostly of this variety, Pusa 44. And farmers like it because it yields you about, say, 5 quintals higher per acre. And if you take the minimum support price of paddy of, say, 2,200 rupees, so 5 quintals is more than 10,000 rupees. So the farmer doesn't want to sacrifice this revenue of 10,000 rupees per acre, So that is why the farmer grows Pusa 44. And given a choice, the Punjab farmer will grow only this variety.
Right, and you mentioned that the Pusa 44 was introduced in Punjab almost 3 decades ago. But this problem of stubble burning wasn't always prevalent. So could you tell us what changed since it was introduced the first time?
So what was happening was earlier farmers were transplanting Pusa 44 around mid-May. So then it was ready for harvesting by early October. Then there was no need for burning the stubble because there's enough time between, harvesting early October and sowing wheat by mid-November. The problem came when farmers had to transplant only from mid-June onwards, because before that they were not getting free electricity. So the Punjab government came out with a law that you cannot transplant paddy before mid-June because you cannot be transplanting at the height of the summer, right? So if you transplant in May when temperatures are 43, 44, then you have to irrigate maybe twice a day. So growing Pusa 44 at that time was basically leading to a depletion of your water table. Today, growing Pusa 44 is leading to pollution of the air. So it's like a trade-off between depleting water tables and polluting the air, which we are feeling now.
Right, and now the Indian Agricultural Research Institute has bred an improved version of Pusa 44. So how different is this version and how will it help reduce stubble burning?
So what IARI, the same Pusa Institute or the Indian Agricultural Research Institute in New Delhi, what they have done is they have crossed this Pusa 44 with what is called an early Japonica line. It's called CB501. And this is basically a Japonica rice variety. Like in the case of rice, there are 2 major subspecies. One is the Indica rice, which is what we grow in India. Then you have the Japonica rice, which is typically more sticky, etc. So the IARI scientists, they managed to identify a particular variety, which is a Japonica variety, which is early maturing, So when you cross that line with Pusa 44, you get the grain attributes, the high yielding attributes of Pusa 44 and also the good grain quality of Pusa 44. So this new variety, which they are calling as, I think, Pusa 2090, it combines the attributes of Pusa 44, that is very high yield, and with lower duration, which they are saying about 120 to 125 days, So then you get the best of both worlds.
Right, so this variety will produce the same amount of crop but in less time.
Yes, it will basically cut the duration by about a month, so 30 days earlier. So which means if I now transplant in mid-June, I'll be able to harvest it in about 4 months from now, So by mid-October, I'm able to easily harvest this variety. So then there is enough space, so then the farmers don't have to burn the stubble, etc. They can then harvest the stubble, they can supply it to, say a biogas unit or anybody else. So there's no hurry-burry, which is not the case now. So which is why the breeding this new variety, it makes a lot of difference. And if it really clicks, it will make a lot of difference.
Right, and Harish, has there been any interest in actually sowing this new variety? Is there any evidence of its abilities to convince Punjab farmers to switch to this variety?
Well, this variety has already been tried out in 3 crop seasons, 2020 onwards. And it has already been identified for release. But unfortunately, it has been identified for release only in Delhi and in Odisha. So it has not been identified for release in Punjab. For some reason, they don't seem to be very keen on this variety. Maybe because they have their own varieties like PR 126, PR 121. And probably they see this as a, some kind of a rival variety, But my feeling is that the Punjabi farmer is very entrepreneurial. If he is convinced that this variety is good, then he'll source it straight from Pusa Institute. Because see, even the farmer, let's be very clear, the farmer does not want to burn his stubble because he's also suffering because of the pollution, right? So it's not as though the farmer wants to deliberately burning the stubble. And mind you, Punjab Agriculture University now calls Pusa 44 a non-recommended variety. And yet Punjab farmers grow it. And now Bhagwant Singh Maan has said that we'll ban its cultivation. How can he do it? How can he tell farmers that you cannot grow Pusa 44? It's not going to be easy, So which is why my feeling is that there's going to be a lot of demand for the seeds of this new variety which they have bred and which Pusa Institute says that this is basically Pusa 44 itself, but a more improved variety, a more shorter duration compared to Pusa 44.
And in the end, we talk about tuberculosis. The World Health Organization recently published a report on tuberculosis. The report, titled Global TB Report 2023, revealed that India accounts for 27% of the total TB cases in the world. And this is despite the fact that India had set a target to eliminate TB from the country by 2025. But it's not all bad news. Turns out the report also highlighted certain positive trends in India, such as an increase in the diagnosis and treatment for TB patients. In this segment, the Indian Express's Anonna Dutt joins us to explain what the WHO report means in this context. Anonna, can you first tell us about this report and what it says about the prevalence of TB in India?
So this is the Global TB Report, which was released recently by the World Health Organization. This is an annual report which gives an idea of, how many cases a country has, how many deaths happen due to TB, how many people get, drug-resistant TB, what is the treatment coverage and things like that. So when it comes to India, for the current year, the 2023 report, which is an estimate for cases and deaths, etc. in 2022. It says that there were about 28.2 lakh cases in the country, which accounts for 27% of the total cases in the world, meaning that India is the country with the largest burden of tuberculosis.
Right, but Anonna, the report says that these numbers indicate that more people are reporting TB cases, right?
Yes. So if you see, there has been a concerted effort towards elimination of TB since the Prime Minister announced that we would try and achieve the elimination target by 2025, which is 5 years ahead of the global target. So one of the significant moves, when work towards elimination started, was actually mapping out properly where the cases are, whether they're getting treatment, finding cases actively. So all of this has resulted in an increased reporting of cases. So usually what happens, the WHO presents an estimated number of cases that a country records in a year, and then they compare it to the number of cases that are actually diagnosed and reported by the country. And there is always a gap in this. So for example, this year the estimate of TB cases in India was 28 lakhs. But the number of cases that were actually detected was 24 lakhs. So there's a gap of 4 lakhs. This gap in India over the recent years has been declining. This gap in the reported number of cases and the estimated number of cases. What this means is that more and more people are actually getting diagnosed and receiving their treatment on time. And when people miss this diagnosis, so for example, the 4 lakh people who missed their diagnosis this year, they are more likely to spread the TB to their family members and other people around them, which will result in an increased burden in the next report. So basically, this is a very positive move that we are recording more cases, because that means we're diagnosing the people and putting them on treatment. This year's report also shows that India has significantly improved the coverage of TB treatment. It has improved, I think, by 19% to over 80%, meaning over 80% of the people with TB are actually they're covered by the treatment. And this is actually very good, because out of the 30 high burden countries, the countries that have the highest number of TB cases, only 4 countries have achieved this high level of TB treatment coverage.
Right, and you have written that the most important data point of this report is the fact that despite such high numbers, the mortality rate due to TB has gone down in India. Tell us what the report says about that.
So basically, we have been for years the country with the highest number of cases. But this year, the interesting thing that has happened is that the mortality numbers from India have been revised. So the report used to depend on the global burden of disease report for its estimates as to how many TB cases a country has. Now this year they have agreed to and have included that in the report is an estimation that has been presented by India. So now India does its calculations with its own methodology and based on the data from our own sample registration system. And when this data was considered, the WHO realized that the number of the estimated deaths in India went down considerably. So in 2021, the estimated number of people dying from TB in India was 4.9 lakhs or something. And in 2022, the estimate was revised down to 3.3 lakhs. So what this means is we are still one of the high mortality countries, but our share in the total global TB deaths went down from 36% to 26%, which is quite a drastic drop.
So you have mentioned that India has set a target for eliminating TB by 2025. Now, considering the WHO report, what would you say India's challenges would be in reaching the target?
So basically our target is to achieve elimination by 2025, which essentially means that by 2025 we should be detecting only 44 new TB cases per lakh population, and we should be recording only 3 deaths per lakh population. This is the target for elimination of TB in the country. But if you look at the numbers for the current year's report, India's numbers right now in 2022, because the 23 report talks about cases in 22, stood at 199 cases per lakh population, which we have to reduce to 44. So that is quite a task. And when we are talking about mortality, the number of deaths per lakh population for the current report stood at 23, which we have to reduce to 3. So again, that's a significant task. So there are initiatives that are going on. There are active case findings that are now happening. Family members and children in the family are being put on prophylactic treatment. There is tests happening to detect latent TB. So for example, if you have the infection but you don't have any of the symptoms, which is a lot of the people in this country. So there are programs now to detect that as well. So all of these measures are coming together. Even the health and wellness centers that have been created are now diagnosing TB. So all of these measures are working towards elimination, and there are significant strides being made, but there's still a lot to be done.
You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. It was written and produced by me, Utsa, Sarmin, Shashank, Bhargava and Rahel Philipose, who spoke to Vikas for the first segment. If you liked the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone who you think will like it and share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.